Have you ever wondered why, even surrounded by technology, opportunities, and comfort in a big city, you still feel like something is missing? What truly motivates us? Imagine this. You wake up early, grab a coffee, face traffic, or a packed public transport, arrive at work and spend the day solving problems. At the end of your shift, you go home exhausted, watch something on TV or your phone, and then sleep only to repeat it all over again the next day. Sound familiar? Now think about it. You have a job, a place to live, access to food and entertainment, but why do you still feel like something is incomplete? Life in big cities is paradoxical. We have access to more resources than ever, yet stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction have never been higher. Social media showcases seemingly perfect lives, but after just a few minutes of scrolling, we start feeling like we're falling behind. We chase more money, more status, more recognition, but are we looking in the right place? What do we really need to feel complete and fulfilled? The answer to these questions might lie in a theory created over 70 years ago by a psychologist named Abraham Maslow. He developed a simple yet revolutionary model to explain what drives human beings, the famous Maslow's Pyramid. This theory goes far beyond psychology textbooks. It can explain what's missing in your life and how you can find true meaning amid urban chaos. In this video, we'll dive deep into this idea. You'll understand how Maslow's Pyramid works, why it's so relevant to our daily lives, and how big cities can either help or hinder our journey toward personal fulfillment. But before anything else, take a moment to think. If money, status, and comfort aren't enough, then what truly makes us happy? Imagine growing up in an environment where everything seems to be against you: family pressure, financial struggles, and a constant feeling of isolation. This was exactly the scenario in which Abraham Maslow was born and raised. Maslow wasn't just a psychologist, he was one of the most influential thinkers in modern psychology. Born on April 1, 1908 in Brooklyn, New York, but Maslow's childhood was far from easy. He grew up in a home marked by extreme rigidity and sky-high expectations. His father, Samuel Maslow, was an alcoholic who often ridiculed him, while his mother, Rose, was obsessively religious and emotionally distant. Maslow once said he never received love or affection from his mother, and that, as a child, she even killed his kitten's newborns as a form of punishment. This toxic environment led him to seek refuge in books and learning, shaping his intellectual path. From an early age, Maslow felt like an outsider. He was shy, introspective, and extremely curious. In his youth, he spent countless hours reading, exploring subjects ranging from philosophy to the emerging psychology of the time. His love for knowledge led him to study law at the City College of New York, following his family's expectations. But it was a disaster. He hated the course and soon decided to take a completely different path. That's when he discovered psychology at the University of Wisconsin, where he found his true passion. During his academic years, Maslow studied with some of the greatest psychologists of his time. He was a student and assistant to Harry Harlow, the famous researcher known for his controversial monkey experiments, which demonstrated the importance of affection in early childhood. This experience sparked Maslow's interest in topics such as love, connection, and personal growth. Later, he worked with Edward Thorndike at Columbia University, where he began questioning the dominant psychological approaches of the time: behaviorism and Freudian psychoanalysis. To understand why Maslow's theory was so groundbreaking, we need to consider the context in which he developed his ideas. In the first half of the 20th century, psychology was dominated by two major schools of thought: behaviorism, which claimed that all human behavior was a result of stimuli and responses, and Freudian psychoanalysis, which focused on the unconscious and childhood traumas as the primary determinants of personality. Maslow did not entirely reject these approaches, but believed they were incomplete. Behaviorism treated humans like predictable machines, while Freud saw people as prisoners of their impulses and neuroses. But Maslow believed there was something much greater and more positive in human nature, something that needed to be studied and valued. That's when he began developing his own approach, humanistic psychology. Instead of focusing only on human problems and limitations, as Freud and the behaviorists did, Maslow decided to study what makes people happy and fulfilled. He wanted to understand why some individuals manage to achieve an exceptional level of well-being, creativity, and satisfaction in life, while others remain stuck in cycles of frustration and suffering. His method was simple but innovative. Instead of studying only patients with psychological disorders, as was common at the time, Maslow analyzed people he considered fully developed and emotionally successful. He examined figures like Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt, Mahatma Gandhi, and even artists and writers who demonstrated a high level of creativity and purpose in life. In studying these individuals, he noticed common patterns. They all seemed to have reached a state he called self-actualization, the highest level of human development. This is how Maslow's pyramid was born, a model that explains human needs in a hierarchy, from the most basic, such as food and security, to the highest, like purpose and self-fulfillment. But his theory didn't appear overnight. It was the result of years of observation, reflection, and questioning of traditional psychological ideas. Maslow published his key findings in the book Motivation and Personality, 1954, and later refined his theory in Toward a Psychology of Being, 1962. But he didn't stop there. In the final years of his life, he realized that self-actualization wasn't the end of the human journey. There was something beyond it. He began exploring the concept of transcendence, which would later become one of the pillars of transpersonal psychology. Maslow believed that once we reach our full potential as individuals, the next step is to go beyond ourselves, seeking something greater, whether through spirituality, altruism, or a deeper connection with the universe. Maslow passed away prematurely in 1970, at the age of 62 due to a heart attack. But his legacy lives on. Today, his ideas influence not only psychology, but also education, corporate leadership, and even personal development. His theory of motivation explains why we seek growth and evolution, and his optimistic view of human nature continues to inspire people to reach their full potential. Now that we understand who Maslow was and what led him to develop his theory, let's dive into Maslow's pyramid and discover how it can help us better understand our own needs and motivations in the modern world. Imagine being lost in the desert with no water or food. The scorching sun burns your skin, your mouth is dry, and your only concern is surviving a few more hours. You're not thinking about work, social media, or recognition right now. All that matters is finding something to drink. Now picture another scenario. You have everything you need to survive, but you live in constant fear, unsure about your home, your job, or even your personal safety. In this case, even though you have food and water, your mind is occupied with trying to secure stability. Let's shift the scene once again. You have everything: money, security, a comfortable home, but you live in isolation with no friends or family. You feel like something is missing. On the other hand, imagine that you have incredible relationships, financial security, and access to everything you desire, yet you still feel empty because you can't find meaning in what you do. These situations perfectly illustrate what Abraham Maslow tried to explain with his famous theory of human motivation. He realized that human needs follow a hierarchy, and we can only focus on certain aspects of life when our more basic needs are met. This model became known as Maslow's Pyramid. Maslow's Pyramid is a visual concept that organizes human needs into 5 levels, structured from the base to the top. At the foundation are physiological needs, which represent our most primitive and essential survival requirements. This includes food, water, air, shelter, sleep, and reproduction. These are the first things we seek to fulfill. If someone is experiencing extreme hunger, nothing else matters. A clear example is people in homelessness or disaster survivors, whose focus is entirely on obtaining the basics to stay alive. In urban environments, this struggle is reflected in the daily fight for food and housing, especially for those in vulnerable situations. Once these basic needs are met, the next step is seeking security. This includes physical protection, financial stability, health, and a stable environment. In modern life, this need manifests in the pursuit of a steady job, health insurance, a safe place to live, and the reassurance that tomorrow won't bring extreme risks. This is why so many people accept jobs they dislike, because they need stability before even thinking about personal fulfillment. When we have the basics and feel secure, our attention shifts to relationships. At this level, we seek friendships, family connections, love, and a sense of belonging. Our mental and emotional health depends on social connections, and studies show that loneliness can be as harmful as smoking. Social media gives the illusion of connection, but it doesn't replace real, meaningful interactions. After establishing relationships, we start looking for self-esteem and recognition. This is when we seek self-confidence, respect from others, and a sense of competence. We want to be valued, to feel skilled at what we do, and to be acknowledged for our achievements. In urban settings, this often translates into striving for promotions at work, gaining followers on social media, or being admired within a social circle. Many people get stuck at this level, obsessed with status and external validation, forgetting that the next step could be even more important. At the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, the concept Maslow considered the highest form of human motivation. Here, the focus shifts away from others' opinions and toward the development of our maximum potential. Self-actualized individuals are constantly learning, developing talents, expressing creativity, and finding a true purpose in life. Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, Marie Curie, Leonardo da Vinci, these are all figures who reached self-actualization. Maslow developed this model in a time when the world was very different from today, but his ideas remain extremely relevant. Think about your own life. Where do you currently stand on the pyramid? Are you focused solely on survival, searching for stability, feeling the lack of real connections, or are you already working toward reaching your full potential? Some people spend their entire lives focused solely on money and security, never exploring their passions. Others become obsessed with social media, constantly seeking validation, but failing to invest in their own growth. Maslow teaches us that to live a fulfilled life, we need to balance all these levels and move toward the top. However, Maslow himself later realized that self-actualization wasn't the final step of the human journey. He later added an extra level, transcendence. We'll discuss that soon. But before we do, we need to understand how the urban environment can interfere with this journey and why so many people never manage to climb the steps of the pyramid. Have you ever felt like you're always running, always busy, but at the end of the day, it seems like you haven't moved forward? Like something is missing, but you can't quite figure out what? This happens because we live in a world that pushes everyone in the same direction. Work, make money, buy things, pay bills, repeat. But is that really all there is? The truth is, human motivation doesn't work that way. We don't wake up every day just to earn money or pay bills. There's an invisible structure that drives what we seek and why we seek it, and that structure is exactly what Maslow's pyramid explains. Now think about this. Why do some people, despite having money and security, still feel unhappy? Why do some people seem to have everything, a good job, a solid relationship, recognition, but still feel like something is missing? And at the same time, why are there people who have far less yet seem much more satisfied? The answer lies in how we fulfill each level of the pyramid. If a need isn't met, it becomes an obsession. If you don't have enough money, your mind is constantly focused on survival. If you already have a stable job and a place to live, your concerns shift. Maybe now you start feeling the lack of social connections. If you have friends and an active social life, you might begin thinking about how to be recognized, respected, admired. And once you reach that, the big question arises: what comes next? This is where many people get stuck. The modern world creates invisible barriers that keep us trapped at certain levels of the pyramid. People who spend their whole lives just trying to survive, with no time to think about the future. People who have money and stability but are terrified of losing everything and never leave their comfort zone. People whose entire self-esteem depends on external validation and who live as prisoners of others' opinions. People who achieve success only to realize it didn't bring the meaning they expected. Urban life makes this even worse. The big city gives you a million options, but overwhelms you at the same time. You have infinite access to information, but feel like you never know enough. You can connect with anyone through technology, yet you often feel lonelier than ever. Maslow's pyramid isn't just an academic theory. It explains why we feel the way we do, why some things leave us unfulfilled, and what we actually need to break free from this sense of emptiness. So now is the time to ask yourself, where am I on the pyramid? What is missing in my life? What am I really searching for? If you want to understand how to break out of this cycle and find a real path to personal fulfillment, stay with me, because in the next topics we'll dive even deeper into this theory and discover what truly motivates us to escape autopilot and build a life with real meaning. Big cities are the center of modernity. Cutting-edge technology, endless job opportunities, intense social life, everything happening at once. But at the same time, they are also places of chaos, endless traffic, insecurity, social isolation, and a routine that seems to drain everyone's energy. When we look at this through the lens of Maslow's pyramid, we can understand why so many people feel overwhelmed, dissatisfied, or lost in this environment. Urban life can either facilitate or hinder our progression through the pyramid, depending on how we navigate each level. At the base of the pyramid are our most fundamental needs: food, water, sleep, and shelter. These may seem simple, but in big cities, even these basics can be a challenge. Despite supermarkets and restaurants everywhere, fast-paced routines push many people to rely on processed food, fast food, and excessive caffeine just to get through the day. The result? Health issues, chronic fatigue, and a body that never functions at its best. Sleep is another struggle. Artificial lights, traffic noise, excessive screen time, and a lifestyle that glorifies those who sleep less to be more productive. Then there's housing. Living in a big city often means dealing with outrageous rent, long commutes, crowded public transport, or sharing small apartments with strangers. Many people live in tiny spaces, lacking privacy and comfort, just trying to secure a place to rest after exhausting days. Once basic survival is secured, we seek safety, but safety is never guaranteed in big cities. The fear of violence is part of daily life. Before leaving home, people check the time, avoid certain areas, worry about theft, lock their doors, and stay constantly aware of their surroundings. This creates a constant state of alertness, and when the brain is always in survival mode, it's hard to focus on growth, relationships, or purpose. The result? Anxiety, burnout, panic attacks. When we don't feel stable, we can't focus on anything beyond the next bill that needs to be paid. Then comes one of the biggest paradoxes of modern life. We are surrounded by people, yet we have never been so alone. The third level of the pyramid involves relationships, friendships, love, and belonging. In theory, cities offer all of this: parties, events, interest groups, millions of people to interact with. But in practice, it's a different story. Technology has given us social media, messaging apps, and virtual interactions, but it has also distanced us from real human connection. Instead of deep conversations, we exchange likes. Instead of meaningful moments together, we have rushed video calls. Relationships also suffer. The fast pace of life, stress, and an abundance of options make it difficult for many to form strong bonds. Disposable relationships, superficial friendships, interactions that seem meaningful but vanish at the first sign of difficulty. This is the reality for many. Moving further up the pyramid, we reach the need for esteem, recognition, respect, and self-confidence. But in urban life, this can become a dangerous trap. We live in an era of constant comparison. Social media bombards us with images of seemingly successful people, traveling the world, buying luxury cars, living picture-perfect lives. The problem, this creates massive pressure to prove our own worth. Many people tie their self-esteem to external validation. They chase followers, likes, and compliments. They build an identity based on how they want to be seen, rather than who they truly are. This can lead to a vicious cycle. The more we seek external approval, the more insecure we become. At the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization, the desire to grow, evolve, and find real purpose. But how do you achieve that in a world that constantly pushes you into an endless cycle of productivity? Society teaches us that we must always be busy. If we're not working, we're failing. If we're not producing, we're wasting time. The problem is that many people spend their lives busy but directionless. They work to pay bills without ever stopping to reflect on what they truly want. Self-actualization requires self-awareness and time to explore what really matters. But in today's world, time has become a luxury. So the big question is, how do we escape this cycle? How can we use Maslow's pyramid to break free from autopilot and find a path that truly brings satisfaction? In the next sections, we'll explore the updates to Maslow's theory and discover how modern concepts like intrinsic motivation and the flow state can transform the way we perceive our own lives. Maslow spent much of his life studying what makes a human being feel truly complete. When he first created the famous Hierarchy of Needs, he believed that the highest level was self-actualization, the moment when a person becomes the best version of themselves. But over time, he realized that this wasn't enough. He began to ask himself, what comes next? What lies beyond self-actualization? That's when he noticed that some people went further. They weren't just concerned with reaching their full potential, they were looking for something greater. They sought meaning beyond themselves, something that transcended their personal ambitions. This was the major insight that led Maslow to add a new level to his pyramid: transcendence. Transcendence happens when we realize that being successful, creative, or talented isn't enough. There is an even greater need to contribute to something beyond our own ego. It's no longer about becoming someone extraordinary, but about using that growth to make an impact on the world in some way. Maslow began to see that the most fulfilled people weren't just those who achieved personal success, but those who felt a deep connection with something bigger, whether by helping others, pursuing a broader purpose, or exploring a spiritual aspect of life. Think about the stories we hear all the time. How often have you seen someone reach the peak of their career, accumulate wealth, fame, and status, only to later walk away from it all, to dedicate themselves to a cause? Millionaire entrepreneurs who sell their companies and start funding social projects. Doctors who, after years of success, choose to work in underserved communities. Scientists who abandon the pursuit of awards to focus on teaching. These are all examples of people who reached self-actualization but realized that the next step was something much greater than themselves. And it doesn't have to be something grand. Transcendence can appear in simple moments in everyday life. A teacher who sees a student finally grasp a difficult concept and feels a satisfaction that no amount of money could buy. An artist who creates something that profoundly touches someone's life. A volunteer who dedicates time to helping those in need. These are moments when we realize that life has meaning beyond our own desires and ambitions. Maslow also observed that these people often experience intense moments of clarity and connection, which he called peak experiences. These are moments when everything seems to fall into place, when a person feels they are exactly where they should be, doing exactly what they were meant to do. And these moments can happen in any area of life. An athlete entering a state of flow during a competition, a musician getting completely lost in the melody, a leader inspiring their team and witnessing their work transform lives. These peak experiences are signs that someone is living at a deeper level of meaning and purpose. And this raises an important question. Why do so many people never reach this stage? The truth is that modern society does not encourage transcendence. All we hear is work harder, make more money, achieve more, but no one teaches us to look beyond ourselves. The world is full of people who have accomplished everything they wanted. Money, fame, power, but still feel empty. Because the last piece of this puzzle isn't in individual achievement, but in connection with something greater. Now the question is, where are you in this journey? Do you feel like you're still climbing the pyramid, focused only on surviving, making money, and building your career? Or do you feel like you've already been through all that and now want something more? The answer to this question can completely change how you see your life. Because in the end, true fulfillment isn't just about what you achieve, it's about the impact you leave on the world. In the next sections, we'll explore how this connects with other theories of motivation and how you can apply these concepts to your own life. If Maslow were alive today, would he change anything in his pyramid? Probably not the overall structure, but he would certainly be paying close attention to new discoveries about motivation. One of the most influential researchers on this topic is Daniel Pink, author of the book Drive: The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. He went beyond Maslow's pyramid to answer a simple question: what really makes us get out of bed every day with the drive to do something? For a long time, society believed that people were motivated by just two things: rewards and punishments. If you want someone to work harder, offer a bonus. If you want someone to avoid something, impose a fine. This model worked well during the Industrial Revolution, when work was repetitive and based on mechanical tasks. But in the modern world, where creativity, innovation, and autonomy are more important, this system has started to fail. And that's where drive comes in. Pink argues that three main factors truly drive human motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. When we connect these concepts to Maslow's pyramid, we gain a new perspective on what motivates us. Autonomy is directly linked to security and self-esteem in the pyramid. In the past, people worked just to survive. Today, we want control over our own lives. No one likes to feel trapped, whether in a rigid job, a suffocating routine, or a lifestyle that doesn't make sense. The more autonomy we have, the more we can decide what we truly want to do. But autonomy without mastery is pointless. That's where the second pillar comes in. Mastery is the need to constantly improve at something, to feel progress, to overcome challenges. In Maslow's pyramid, this relates to both self-esteem and self-actualization. Think about anything you enjoy doing: playing an instrument, practicing sports, learning a new skill. The feeling of progress, of seeing yourself getting better and better, is one of the greatest drivers of motivation. This is why some people spend hours training, studying, or practicing something without needing an external reward. Finally, we have purpose, which connects directly to the top of the pyramid. Humans don't just want autonomy and mastery, they want to feel that what they're doing truly matters. Have you noticed that the most passionate people about their work aren't just motivated by money? They see a greater meaning in what they do. Doctors dedicate themselves to saving lives. Artists express their vision of the world. Entrepreneurs create something new. Teachers inspire students. When we find a purpose, our work stops being just an obligation and becomes something that truly moves us. Now think about how this applies to our reality. The traditional motivation model based solely on money and status is outdated. Companies are beginning to realize that the most motivated employees aren't those who earn the highest salaries, but those who have the freedom to work in their own way, who feel they are improving, and who see purpose in what they do. And this doesn't just apply to work. Motivation for anything in life follows this logic. If you want to learn something new, you need autonomy to choose how to study. You need to feel that you're improving, and you need to see a purpose in it. If you want to become healthier, you need to find a method that works for you. You need to see progress, and you need to understand why it matters. The real question here is, do you feel motivated by what you do today? Do you have autonomy, or do you feel trapped? Do you feel like you're improving, or are you just repeating the same cycles? Does what you do have a purpose, or is it just something you endure to pay the bills? If any of these answers aren't satisfying, maybe it's time to rethink your motivation. Because in the end, understanding what truly drives us is the first step toward building a life with more meaning. Have you ever been so immersed in an activity that you completely lost track of time? Maybe you spent hours playing a video game, playing an instrument, writing, or practicing a sport without even realizing how much time had passed. Then when you finally check the clock, you see that 3, 4, or even 5 hours have gone by. But instead of feeling exhausted, you feel an incredible sense of satisfaction, a feeling of total engagement and control over what you're doing. This phenomenon has a name: flow state. And it was the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who studied and defined this concept. For him, this state isn't just a pleasant sensation, it is one of the keys to true personal fulfillment. Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what makes people genuinely happy. He discovered that moments of maximum satisfaction and well-being don't happen when we are passively relaxing on the couch or consuming entertainment. They happen when we are fully engaged in a challenging activity that requires effort, concentration, and specific skills. That's when we enter the flow state. But what does this have to do with motivation and Maslow's pyramid? Everything. Because when we talk about self-actualization, the top of the pyramid, what we're really searching for is this feeling of being completely present and engaged in something that matters to us. Csikszentmihalyi discovered that there are some fundamental elements that make flow possible. First, the activity needs to be challenging at the right level. If it's too easy, we get bored. If it's too difficult, we get frustrated. The perfect balance happens when the task pushes us just beyond our current abilities, forcing us to improve and surpass ourselves. Another essential factor is immediate feedback. In a flow state, you instantly know whether you're doing something right or wrong. It's like playing a game where every action has a direct impact on the outcome, or learning an instrument and feeling when you hit the right notes in perfect rhythm. This instant feedback keeps the brain engaged and motivated, and perhaps the most important aspect, the ego disappears. During flow, we're not thinking about ourselves, our problems, or what others might think. We are simply doing, fully immersed in the present moment. Now think about your daily routine. How many activities actually put you in this state? If your day is filled with mechanical, meaningless tasks, it's hard to experience this deep satisfaction. But when we find activities that challenge us, require focus, and push our skills, we begin to have more flow experiences. And this can happen in any field. A programmer can enter flow while writing code. A chef may feel it while preparing a complex dish. An athlete experiences it during an intense competition. A writer can get completely lost in their words. Even simple activities like gardening, meditation, or crafting can bring us into flow when we are fully engaged. The problem is that modern life pulls us away from this state. We are constantly interrupted by notifications, social media, distractions, and external demands. Our time is fragmented, and we rarely focus on a single activity for hours at a time. The result? Fewer flow moments, less deep satisfaction. So the real question is, how can we create more of these moments? The first step is to identify which activities make you lose track of time, the ones that truly engage and challenge you. The second step is to eliminate distractions, creating an environment where you can focus without interruptions. The third is to make it a habit intentionally seeking more of these experiences in your daily life. Because in the end, flow is the closest path to personal fulfillment. When we find activities that regularly put us in this state, we feel that our life has more meaning and purpose. And maybe this is exactly what Maslow meant when he talked about self-actualization. It's not just about achieving something, but about living moments where we are fully present, fully engaged, and fully alive. Now that you understand Maslow's pyramid, human motivation, and how the flow state can transform your routine, the most important question arises: how do you apply this in your daily life? How can you use this knowledge to make better decisions about work, relationships, and purpose? The first thing you need to do is identify where you currently stand in the pyramid. This may seem simple, but many people spend their entire lives trying to solve a problem without realizing they are looking in the wrong place. If you constantly worry about money, security, or basic needs, your focus should be on building a more stable foundation before pursuing bigger goals. There's no point in searching for an incredible life purpose if you're still struggling to pay the bills. However, at the same time, you can't remain stuck in survival mode forever. The goal is to create a solid base so you can move up the pyramid and start thinking beyond just getting by. Now, if you already have financial stability but still feel empty, you might be stuck in the search for social connections or self-esteem. We often believe that success is all about money and status, but we forget that relationships are one of the keys to happiness. If you feel lonely, disconnected, or without emotional support, it may be time to invest more in your relationships, strengthen friendships, or find people who share similar values. And if you already have all of that stability, security, and healthy relationships, but still feel like something is missing, it might be because it's time to seek a greater purpose. This is the moment to look toward transcendence, to ask yourself how you can make a meaningful impact in the world, whether through your work, a personal project, or even small daily actions. Now let's break this down into 3 fundamental areas of your life: work, relationships, and purpose. In work, the key question is, are you feeling motivated or just surviving? If your job is just a way to pay the bills and you feel like you're not growing, it might be time to seek more autonomy, mastery, and purpose, as Daniel Pink explains in Drive. If you have no control over what you do, feel stuck, and see no meaning in your work, it may be worth reconsidering your path. This doesn't mean quitting everything at once, but rather gradually shifting your career towards something that challenges and fulfills you. In relationships, Maslow's pyramid teaches us that real connections are essential to happiness. If you feel like your social life is weak, it may be because you are spending too much time on work or superficial distractions and neglecting what truly matters. Healthy relationships require time and effort, but they are one of the most important pillars for emotional well-being. And when we talk about purpose, the question becomes even deeper. Does what you do today have real meaning for you? Do you feel like you are contributing to something bigger? Or are you just going through the motions? This doesn't mean that everyone needs to drop everything and become a monk in the Himalayas. Purpose can be found in small things: helping someone, sharing knowledge, creating something that inspires others. But to find it, you need to pause and ask yourself, what truly matters to me? The most powerful lesson from Maslow's pyramid is that it's not a final destination, it's a continuous process. You may move up and down the levels throughout life. The important thing is to stay aware of where you are and where you want to go. So now I ask you, where are you in the pyramid today? What's holding you back? What can you do right now to take the next step? Because in the end, understanding all of this is useless if you don't apply it to your own life. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that Maslow's pyramid isn't just a theoretical psychology model. It's a map of human motivation, a way to understand why we seek what we seek, and more importantly, how we can find more meaning in our lives. Throughout this video, we explored each level of the pyramid and saw how it connects with other major motivation theories. We talked about Daniel Pink and how autonomy, mastery, and purpose shape our behavior. We discussed the importance of the flow state and how Csikszentmihalyi discovered that the happiest moments in our lives happen when we are fully immersed in something that challenges us. And most importantly, we understood that personal fulfillment is not a destination, it's a continuous process of growth. Now, the big question is, what will you do with this knowledge? This video wasn't just about explaining a theory, it was meant to make you reflect on where you are right now and what you can do to move up another step on your personal pyramid. So I want to invite you to a quick reflection. Where are you in the pyramid today? Are you still struggling to secure stability? Are you seeking more connections and relationships? Or do you already have all that and feel like you need a greater purpose? Leave a comment below sharing your biggest insight from this video. I want to know how this concept resonated with you and if it helped you see your own life more clearly. And if this video made you think of someone, a friend, a colleague, or a family member who could benefit from this knowledge, share it with them. Sometimes, a single idea can open new paths for someone who feels lost. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for upcoming videos because we'll continue exploring topics that help you better understand your mind, your motivation, and your path to a more fulfilling life. And remember, the pyramid is a guide, but the journey is yours. You don't have to stay where you are. There's always another step to take.